everybody. I'm Christopher Emge of the Success School from the Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. This is one of our career panels that we enjoy doing. Today we're doing information technology, and we're going to start with a panel of 3 today to see what that entails as far as getting into that very lucrative career. And
lucrative.
Craig, with that, this is sort of your posse. If you want to start with your work at ProBleu and sort of a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks for having us, Chris. I was kind of reminiscing when you contacted me, and I was like, well, you know, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it with 2 people that I've known since the 90s, and that's both Jeff and Chris Dickens at Barnhill. I'm currently the Vice President of Sales for ProBleu here in Bloomington, Indiana. I've been doing it for about 15 years now, and we provide IT support services for various businesses in the community and the region. So, Chris Dickens, why don't you tell us what it is that you do now?
Sure, thanks, Craig. And thanks, Christopher, for having us on today. My name is Christopher Dickens. I am the Chief Information Officer at Rootworks. Rootworks is a firm that helps accounting firms run better business practices. So I've been with Rootworks for about 6.5 years, roughly. Big background in IT services, and I came about that job because Darren Root was actually a client of mine. I did IT consulting services, and he recruited me to come on board a few years ago. So that's where I am currently.
Jeff?
Yeah, thanks, Christopher, for having me. Appreciate the time to share. My name is Jeff Barnhill. I'm the Executive Director of Technology for CarDon and Associates. CarDon is a senior living company. We own senior living communities all across the state of Indiana. If you're from or around the Bloomington area, you may be familiar with Bell Trace. Bell Trace is one of our communities. I've been here 13 years. I've been doing technology in the technology industry for about 20. That's where I first met Craig and Chris at a company called Kiva that we all worked for many years ago. So that's the connection.
Well, Jeff, since I have you, I'll start with the question I have with IT is, it's been now probably about a quarter of a century you've been in this field, which kind of started 30 odd years ago. Give me a sense of what's changed. And because it seems like, I know you're in a very big operation, and I think Christopher is as well, and ProBleu I think is pretty big. I mean, it's gone to individual, like where every department and every little small office had an IT to bigger companies doing IT for a bunch of like accounting firms or whatever that may be, or senior facilities.
So I think that's Chris, that's a great question. I think for me, if I had to answer the question on what's changed the most, I would have to say security, cybersecurity. So a lot of what I do here at CarDon now involves cybersecurity. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you didn't see these big splashes on the major newspapers or in your nightly news about some company that got hacked. And your information now was leaked across the internet. People may have your name, your social number. So cyber criminals and what are called ATPs, or advanced persistent threats, have become part of our everyday lives. I mean, anybody has had information exposed to some kind of a breach. There are now websites you can go to. You can log into a site, put an email account or put your information in, it'll literally list every breach that has your information contained in it, because now there's somebody actually tracking that information. So I would say security is one of the big things that's changed with technology in the last 20 years.
Well, keeping with that security theme, Craig or Chris, do you have any of those sort of security stories? Has anybody had like one of those where it's been breached and you've had to kind of recover from that? I mean, I'd imagine something, whether that's something small or something a little bit larger.
Yeah, raise your hand if you've had to deal with ransomware on a personal level. So there you go, unanimous. Yeah, there's definitely that across the field, and like I said, I work for a company that works with accounting firms. We have hundreds of accounting firms across the nation that are Rootworks members. And financial services and accounting firms have a big target on their back. The reason is they have enterprise level data, financial data of all of our small businesses across the nation.
Yep.
With a small IT budget. Jeff Barnhill, he's got a decent sized budget. Now you can say he needs more budget, obviously, because we never had enough money to put a cybersecurity. But these are small accounting firms. Most of them don't even have an IT person on staff. They hire companies like Craig's company, ProBleu, to take care of their services. So yeah, we've had a handful of companies that have had major data breaches to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars of remediation costs. So yeah, it's pervasive across the industry.
I think the largest customer, which we gained as a new customer, is they had $1 million transferred out, and that's here in southern Indiana.
Yeah,
so it's definitely an ongoing battle, and it's not so much technical as much as it used to be. It's more social, and they use tools to get you to release information that you normally would not, and convincing you to hand over confidential information that is then easily used to steal money. It's all geared towards money. I mean, I have no interest in your medical records unless it gives me access to your money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's about the gist of it.
Well, since we're kind of going, these are basically high schoolers interested in IT, and I know Bloomington's probably not the best gauge because if you don't, everybody has a bachelor's degree, they grow on trees. But I mean, you don't need, what do you need if you're going to get in the IT industry as far as certificates? Or, I mean, you can get, I mean, what does a bachelor's degree do if you're interested in this sort of thing? What are some of the interests that might, like, is it kind of programming, or where does that kind of stem from, or just problem solving?
Ooh, problem solving is a great one. I don't see a lot of problem solving going on anymore in school. A lot of the people that we get resumes from, we're looking at the ones that have real world value versus the ones that are all schooled. Because what they teach you in school is not what's happening in the business world.
Yeah, I'll back that up.
A lot of theory.
Craig says it's correct. It has a lot to do with the real world experience. I mean, I think as someone who hires folks for our team at the help desk level, for other different tasks we have here at CarDon, yes, the certificates are great, but that real world experience is really what I think employers are looking for. So internships, that's a great place to start. If you're looking to try to get your hands and feet into the field, in an internship, if you're a great way to get started. Certifications are good, but they're very specific. So if you're really just trying to get started in IT, an internship where you can get some hands-on experience is probably the best way. You can always go after certifications later, if you think that's important.
Well, I think that's a great point, Jeff. Now, would somebody with lacking any real experience, say out of high school, who's taken some computer classes, I don't know if you'd have something that where they could just take an unpaid internship, right, for 15 hours a week or something, that would be a possibility at one of the firms here, and Chris Steppen as well. Is that a possibility?
We take interns. Yeah. I mean, the goal of the internship is, well, I'll tell you, the interns don't get the best jobs.
And we'll get into that. I'm assuming it's like the help desk stuff.
Yeah, a lot of the interns start out with answering the phone, moving information around. They might do some new machine or some setup, but most of the time, depending upon what we're doing, they might shadow. But we also have to be careful with who has access to what information. So they may be very limited in their scope of information access because our company, we have access to all sorts of information. And so we just need to be very careful on how that is divided amongst the staff. So interns typically won't have access to anything sensitive. But it's a great start. At least you can see how the process is.
And what are those, anybody can speak up, what are the characteristics that, like, if you see somebody that's an intern, what are those tools that they have? What are those sort of attributes that say, oh, this guy's going to go somewhere in IT?
They can talk to people.
That's
Honestly, I'd much rather have a great personality, someone who's warm and inviting that can be taught versus someone who's cold and just knows a lot. Because if you're a programmer and you can just work on the machine all day and never talk to people, perfect. But if you're in a situation where you have to interact with people who need help, then you've got to have the personality to be able to talk to those people and be nice and not get frustrated. Because keep in mind, people that we're helping have no clue what they're doing, and they don't like being talked down to. So you just have to be cordial. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris. Christopher wants to say something. Dickens.
Oh, no, I was just going to add on to that by saying that, to your point, Craig, a lot of times people don't know how to ask for or explain what the problem is that they're dealing with. So it takes a little bit of finesse and social skills to ask the right questions and draw out the real situation, because somebody may have what they think is the problem. Because this happens to us all the time. Somebody comes to us and tell us what the problem is that needs to be fixed, but we have to dissect that, and we realize that that's not even the problem at all. There's a different problem. What they're reporting is a symptom of the problem, and we got to get to the heart of the problem. So the ability to interact and ask good questions and have that sense of calm and presence. Because a lot of people that hit up IT for help, they're usually frustrated or in a panic, and there's a sense of calming and stabilization that has to be there with your ability to just work in a situation and work through problems.
And what are some of those problems? I mean, what are the day-to-day, if you're starting out, what are some of those day-to-day problems that you might be looking at doing maybe the help desk or doing the calls that?
Well, I think printers are a problem. I think we should get rid of all printers.
You want mine?
Just get rid of printers, and nobody needs IT help anymore.
That's good. So I can answer that, Christopher. So we have a help desk here at CarDon. We have 3 guys that are actively man that help desk from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. Then we have an emergency after-hours help desk that we run here. We probably answer anywhere from 20 to 40 tickets a day. Any given month, 600 to 800 tickets a month. And the problems are very general in nature sometimes. Printers, that's a great example. I can't get my documents to print, or this printer's not set up on my machine. So can you add this printer to my computer? It may just be something with the machine itself, it's blue screen. You've got some kind of a software problem with Windows. Windows has got a driver that's causing it to blue screen.
Big driver issue.
Yeah, you've got maybe there's something on the computer. You've got some bad memory, or you've got a hard drive ready to go out. So troubleshooting is a great skill, and if you don't have it, troubleshooting as a skill, the help desk will help hone that skill for you. Because you're just going to have to ask questions until you can get to the root of the problem, and then once you get to the root of the problem, then you can actually offer a fix for that person. So the help desk is a really good way to get your foot in the door. Doesn't always pay great, but you're going to get access to a lot of different things and learn how to fix a lot of different IT-related problems that can help you get to that next level. So a lot of the guys that you see that have careers in IT have come from some type of a help desk job at some point. They were answering the phones, fixing people's computers, fixing problems, learn how to troubleshoot.
So Jeff and Chris Dickens. Yep. So remind me, I was in help desk at Kiva. Weren't you two higher than you were both in networking?
Yeah, I came in as a network engineer, work with your brother. So that's was my,
right.
I think Chris was the same too. So.
Yeah, just to reminisce about Kiva and at your point, Craig, about being in the help desk. One of the questions was asked earlier by Christopher. What's changed in the industry? Well, 20 years ago, we didn't have the Zoom technology and this screen sharing technology to look at what a end user is looking at. We had to ask questions, and we had to be able to visualize what they were doing, like setting up like a dial-up session, and dial-up internet way back in the day. We had to be able, Craig had to be able to talk people through that, and then if it didn't work, reverse engineer to figure out what instructions they did wrong or how they misconfigured something. So
yeah, I couldn't see their machine. I had to do it all from memory and just assume that they're typing it in properly.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
We were doing everything from IP addressing to configuring the modems, like the dip switches on the modems.
Yeah.
they tell us what modem they had, and we'd have to go look up the diagram, look at the configuration, tell them, okay, well, flip down dip switch number 7. And they flip down number 6. Like, read them off to me again. Which ones are up and down?
I always said before there was Google, there was TED. So Craig's brother, Ted Hickman, was my resource. When I got stuck on site, I'd pick up the phone. I'd call Ted. Ted, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do now. And he would tell me what to do. He'd walk me through it, ask me what I was doing, what did I see. Okay, type this. Tell me what happens next. And so Ted was Google before that existed. So how we used to do it back in the day.
He's pretty good Google still now. His memory's not as good, though.
Yeah.
So, Chris, Jeff, Craig, what you're still in this industry, it's been a long time. What do you love about it? If you're trying to sell somebody on this particular field, what are you selling them on? What is your passion? What is your joy that makes you continue to do this? Besides, I think, paycheck.
My biggest thing is taking the complex and make it simple. We walk into situations, I'm like, what is going on here? And like, this could be a lot easier than what you have going on the setup. And I like taking what's really hard and then trying to make it simple, but the biggest thing, you got to keep it secure. So that's fun. I like that the most. What I don't like is I don't like dealing with the politics that comes with the job at times, which is very hard to deal with. And I know Jeff and Chris have their own politics, but I'm dealing with like a couple hundred different companies' politics, and having no.
What do you mean by that? Just because I don't know if our
so to be fair, is a lot of people think they know more than you do, and that's fine. Then why are you calling me when everything's broken?
Yeah.
So having to be very cordial and nice and having to manipulate all that in a way where you get to the goal that you want without upsetting everybody who's involved. So it's a very delicate measure.
How is honing that? I mean, how long did it take you to hone something? Because
that came from dealing with the call center. When you were on the phone with a very upset, irate customer that couldn't get to a specific website, you had to be very careful with your words and articulate, learning how to speak, because you never wanted to repeat yourself. When you were on the call, you didn't want to say it 5 times; you would say it once. And so doing that day in and day out for hours, who knows how many I was like, I don't know if I did that for a year or 2, I don't remember, but it was constant. And it would start at sometimes, I think on the weekend, was it 6 a.m. that opened up? I don't remember. I was getting cracked on to get up there to answer calls on the weekend. But yeah, the call center was definitely helped me hone and be calm. Don't get excited. Let the user speak. Let them go through their rant. Listen to it all, and then take the bits out that you need, and then use those. But it takes a while patience. Yeah.
So, Christopher, thinking of your audience, you asked a question regarding what's kept me in the industry for 20 years. It's a great question. I think if you're someone who likes things that change quickly, rapidly, there's an appetite for learning all the time. I think IT is a great career because as soon as you think you know something, it changes. It's new. I mean, just as soon as you get good with one operating system, Microsoft's got a new one out. As soon as you think you're good at your networking device, there's a better one out. So you are constantly in a state where you have to adapt and change and learn and grow. It's never dull. Yes, some of the tasks are mundane and boring, but you can always chart a new course in IT. So, for example, 5 years ago, I didn't have anything to do with IT security. And now IT security or cybersecurity consumes a dramatic amount of my time. So there was a need here. I decided I would be the one who could fill it, and so I took it. And I'm glad I did because I really enjoy it. But the problem is there's so much you have to learn and so much information you have to try to digest. There's a saying we use here all the time, and I like to talk to the guys on the team. We're a mile wide and an inch deep. It would be great if we're a mile deep and an inch wide, but we simply don't have enough guys in the IT team to do that. So we have to be a mile wide and an inch deep. Yes, we're not masters at everything, but there isn't almost anything we can't can't throw at this team and they can't work on and have some success with. And if we get stuck, we call a vendor who specializes in that, and they help take care of it. I call Craig. He's got guys on his team who can fill those gaps for us when we're weak in an area. And so it's really fun to be involved in IT with all the ways it changes constantly, almost daily at times.
The technical skill set you talk about being, a mile wide and an inch deep, that carries over into life. I don't know any person that doesn't work in IT that isn't also handy around the house. Like, they'll troubleshoot the refrigerator before they call a refrigerator repair person. So it's like, what's wrong with this thing? And then they'll get the manual out and they'll read online and they'll look for form codes that's got a similar problem. So that passion of trying to tackle a problem. And I would say for me, it's the win. Somebody comes with a fire, with a problem, they're stressed out, they're upset. Getting off of that support session or whatever it is, that interaction, and having them happy and excited and pleased that we solved the problem, to me, that's what's fulfilling for me, is that ability to help people turn a stressful situation into a win or a challenge into a success.
Which you guys have done. I love that Jeff's thing about a mile wide and an inch thick, which gives us to how large IT is in the sense of so many different facets of it, whether that's security or programming. What if someone is, when we've had it on these panels before, programmers that are interested in like making apps, which a lot of, in a tech business want to kind of make that $1 million app. What is there a design for someone who wants to do that, or is it best just to kind of get your hands dirty on the ground level before you start thinking on that level, or making that kind of your side gig while you're kind of learning the craft of information technology?
Good question. I can take that, guys. If you guys jump in, we've recently started to expand into that world. Christopher, we've hired my counterpart, who is laterally from me, is the executive director of applications and analytics. He had one guy on his team as of when he started. He had one guy on his team. Now, as of last week, there's two guys on the team. We hired an RPA developer, and so RPA is something that's kind of new on the scene. It stands for Robotic Process Automation. And so those are those people, like you said, the people who want to develop or into the software side. And there are the sky's the limit for people that have those skills. So this robotic process automation technology that we're starting to kind of try to grow around will take some of the mundane things that our folks are doing and allow a bot to take data from one spreadsheet or one application and move it over to the next application and free up those people to go do tasks that only those people can do. So we're really starting to try to get around how these applications can help us just be more efficient. And it's not just there in the technology, in every department that we have, medical records, NBS, nursing, how can we use this new RPA technology to help improve and basically think of a bot as something that works 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and as long as you've got somebody who can fix it and tweak it when it needs to make a change, it can just keep on going, and we can put people back in to taking care of people in our industry as opposed to moving data around from websites and spreadsheets. So very neat technology.
So we have one client that does limestone cutting, and they used to have these huge saws. They're gigantic, and they would have one person dedicated to watch that saw all day. And once it got close to the wall, they turned the saw off. And now they've taken these bots with cameras, and they watch the saw, and once the saw hits a certain point, the robot turns off the saw. So they had 6 to 8 people dedicated to these saws. Now those 6 to 8 people are just doing different jobs now, and they're doing great. That all had to be programmed. That all required networking, cameras, Wi-Fi. There's a lot of different facets. We got involved because we had to handle the Wi-Fi networking portion to make that all work. But why I didn't do the programming piece, without our application, it would never have succeeded. So that it's one application that was software, And that's all in the cloud too. They manage it all through cloud networking.
Which, Craig, it brings up to the point of automation and how IT is constantly, it's been mentioned before. I think Chris talked about it with, it's just constantly changing. Where do you guys see this field, say 5 years, where the individuals watching this video right now are going to be in the field? Do you kind of see any trends or anything that, if you can get your Swami hat on?
Security's not going to change. Not it's going to get worse. I would hope in the next 10 years we get rid of passwords somehow. If that makes sense in easy form. But everybody talks about the cloud, IoT, Internet of Things, and how everybody's going to be in the cloud the next 5 years. I was told that 5 years ago, and I was told IoT was going to take over everything. Here we are, and I'm still waiting. Like, my car is still manual. My coffee maker still requires me to push a button. If it doesn't, it does it wrong. So it's a constantly moving field. You got the big companies out there, Apple and the other ones innovating, coming out with technologies. But in the business side, it seems to be slower to adopt some of those newer technologies. Now, Jeff's not going to go out and buy the latest and greatest device until he vets it, make sure that it actually works in his environment. And it may take him a year or two to actually accept it and then actually put it in place. So even though something comes out with great technology, it may take him a little bit before he decides it's something that's acceptable to his business.
So, Chris, I think that's a great question. I don't know if Chris wants to say anything, but I think what we're doing right here is a great example of that technological change. I mean, think about I think it was 2 Mondays ago that Zoom crashed on what was the first day back to school. So they work, while Zoom has become, it's even like a verb now, because somebody chatted at me just a second ago while I'm in this meeting, and they said, hey, can I call you? And I said, no, I'm in a Zoom. Think of how the pandemic has just made a major shift in the way we all interact and communicate with each other through these platforms just like Zoom. So, what the next thing is, I don't know. I think RPA, is what I just talked about, is one of those for sure. Having bots handle things that we can just let them do because they can do that job, and we can get people to do other things. So I think RPA is a big one. So if your students are listening, start looking into what RPA is. You can actually go to Microsoft, I think now they purchased an RPA company. We use a company called UiPath. You can actually download a bot for free and start teaching the bot right on your home machine how to do little tasks on your home computer. You can have it log into your bank website, take some information, go over here, blow up a spreadsheet for you, put information on the website. You can just start working with bots on your own at home for almost no cost. Just to get familiar with them. So,
Which is crazy. They're all named Hal, by the way.
No, it's crazy, but that's where we're headed.
I think another thing that's coming along is the integration concept, and one system being able to talk to another system and share information so that you can work more efficiently. So like in our industry, we have lots of different systems that don't talk to each other. So you may have a tax system and this other system, a CRM system, and all these different systems. The ability to integrate those, so you have one source of truth for your client data, and then everything else can integrate into that, so that everything syncs together. Those are some things that are still in development. I think the integration piece is a more open concept of data and information flow. So that's really one of the challenges of small businesses, having all these compartmentalized systems and all these tools and resources that don't talk to each other. So it's like a swivel chair. You can do some work in here, and then you got to come work over here. So the ability to integrate systems and talk to each other is another big growth area, I believe.
I think robotic dogs is where it's all going to go. Just give me a robotic dog. Just plug it in. Don't have to clean up after it. Don't have to feed it.
They walk themselves. All of that good stuff. Hey,
my mail.
Drone delivery.
Oh, there we go.
So here's a quick funny story. I've been waiting on a delivery from FedEx, and Craig and I live in the same neighborhood. And I saw the FedEx truck park outside my house for 2 minutes and leave. And then I got a notice of a failed delivery attempt. The next day I saw him drive through, never stopped, second failed delivery attempt, and now that product's been returned to sender. So I welcome the day of drone delivery because drone's not going to do that.
Yeah. It's going to crash into your house and say, delivered.
Hey, I have a friend, a good friend who's been in IT for, since, the 90s, Middle Earth. And he's worked for the startups. He's worked for a defense contractor. Now he works for the city of Tempe. Give me, what's the difference in working in those environments, kind of? And do you recommend starting somewhere, somewhere big corporate or a small time operation? Does that make a difference, do you think?
I think working corporate is probably a good idea because it gets you a good idea of that side of the industry. I mean, to start small and then to learn corporate sometimes is difficult because they operate completely different than small industry. But there's also a lot of things in the small business industry that you'll never learn in the corporate world because they're like when you're in a small business, you do a lot of hats. Up there in the corporate, you may just do one or two and that's it. You never know anything else. Never learn anything else. What I find in the corporate world is a lot of the people in the IT have tunnel vision. They can only see so much, and they can only do so much because they never see anything else. Whereas in the small business, we do a little bit of everything. I'm just all over the place when it comes to IT, and I get questions that like we normally wouldn't, like in the corporate you wouldn't get. And then the biggest thing is finding an answer for that or finding a solution for that for somebody else to handle. But I don't have any problem starting out. It depends on how you like to interact with people. I mean, corporate world will be completely different when it comes to talking and interacting with people than compared to small business or medium business. And a lot of people are like, what's corporate? Well, that could be 100 people, it could be 5,000 people. Small business could be 2 people, 1 person, up to 400 people. I mean, it depends on how you look at it. Because you can run into some very large companies that run like a small business, very nimble. Then you run into a large business with 100 people, and they can never make a decision. I don't know. Sorry, I'm rambling on there, boys and girls. But I think of the three of us, Jeff and Chris, we've all have experienced many different facets when it comes to technology. We all three worked at Kiva Networking in the beginning of the 90s, and it all just slid forward. We saw the rise and fall of Kiva. So it's interesting to see how things have changed in Bloomington since we all began here. And we're all three still here. And all three have families. So we've made a career out of it.
And that camaraderie shows, right? That you guys have this connection. It's been years, and you still have it, which not every industry has that, I don't think.
We still chat. I see Chris is in my neighborhood. Jeff every once in a while I see him. He comes out of his hole.
He takes me to lunch, and I'm in. So that's how I get me out of my office. So.
All right, gentlemen, we're running at the last bit. Any last words, topics we haven't discussed that you would want to impart on our youth here interested in information technology?
Yeah, so I'll kind of expand on your last question, Christopher, and kind of maybe along a little bit lines of what Craig was saying. If you like the idea of that mile wide, inch deep kind of talking about earlier, and kind of if that's you, if you fit that bill, then I think small to medium business is where you should start looking, because in that industry, or in any industry in small to medium business, you're going to probably wear a lot of different hats. If you're the very focused, I really just simply want to be a programmer, I just want to program, that's what I really enjoy, you're going to probably want to look a little bit more in that larger enterprise. They're going to have roles. They're going to basically need that skill set. They're not going to ask you to do everything else. So
they'll probably also train you to do that role.
I want to know that. Go ahead, Craig.
No, I was just going to say, when you do the large corporate, they'll probably train you to do that role as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
Go ahead, Chris. I don't know. I'm good. I don't want to take any more time.
Sorry, man.
Well, I think it's a great point, Jeff. And what I was going to add to it was, having managed the IT services team at Kiva Networking, and then I had my own IT consulting business. People come in pretty fresh, not having a lot of skills. You know, they get their Microsoft certification, but the value in like a ProBleu or IT consulting company and working for a company like that is you see so many businesses and you see so many implementations of technology that you learn so quickly. And you think, you know, we're just thinking about some of our friends and colleagues that we worked with previously and have gone on to great careers. You know, we have people that have gone to work for Cisco and Amazon,
Google.
Google. They learn so much so rapidly and they get so much exposure. So consulting companies are great as well because you get to see both the small business, the large business, depending on the type of company, but you get exposed to so many different implementations of technology, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that you can see more than where if you're kind of singularly focused in one business where you implement technology one way. So there's definitely value in all. But, you know, from a lot of our experiences and our background, we did see the benefit of seeing so many implementations of technology in different industries and different businesses and different business scope, size, entity types, and those sorts of things. So I think the overarching theme for us all would be just get as much experience and exposure you can, however you can. Practical. The academic knowledge is great, but you know, the real world experience is what develops your skill set quickly.
And I just want to point out, there's more than just doing IT work. There's people in IT management, sales. I mean, there's so many different facets when it comes to IT. You could be someone in charge of the entire IT group, or you know, selling is great too because you have to take the solution and pitch it and get someone to actually accept it. Not you may not be implementing it, but you had to know how all the pieces go together for it to work, and that takes a skill set.
Yeah, we have a friend that works for Salesforce, and he's a solutions engineer. So he takes a business lead and a salesperson, and then he builds a proof of concept. So he doesn't implement, but he builds a proof of concept to take back to that person for the sales pitch. So that's a fun job, and that gives you all kinds of exposure there as well as far as skill set. So yeah, you're right. I mean, there's all kinds of industry opportunities in the industry as a whole.
Oh, great, gentlemen. Anything else before we go? Thank you, Jeff, Chris, Craig. Thank you for your time. I know I learned
Tell any quick Kiva stories, Greg? Do we want to tell any quick Kiva stories before we leave?
I don't know. Are we allowed to take anything out of the vault?
Not without incriminating anyone, so we should try.
Age appropriate too, so be careful.
That has to do with the couch.
No, I was thinking about like a DNS video, but
oh well, there are some few Kiva videos out there if you can find them. That I'm not gonna say who the person who recorded these said videos, but yes, they're out there.
not necessarily on this panel here today.
and they should be seen at your own discretion, really. For
They're not bad. They're not bad.
They're all PG-13.
all right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Christopher.